We're joined by Geoffrey Thomas. He's editor-in-chief at airlineratings.com, speaking to us live from Perth. Mr. Thomas, this, even as we look at it, it's still smouldering. It's been burning for hours. And all these hours, we heard close to 400 passengers and crew managed to leave that plane safely, with some injuries, though our correspondent mentioned. How is it possible for 400 people, close to 400, to leave a plane that erupted so quickly in flames? And looking at it even now, the ferocity of that conflagration was enormous. How did they leave, even if we assume the fire was concentrated on the left-hand side of the plane?
Look, indeed, I can only put it down to the fact that they followed instructions implicitly. They didn't take their baggage with them, their carry-on baggage. They simply got up and got out as fast as possible. Aircraft are certified to a level whereby all passengers can get off the aircraft in 90 seconds using only half the slides. In this case, I could only see 3 slides deployed, and there's about 10. So there's 5 exits on either side. So this is an amazing escape, a miracle escape of basically discipline, of getting off the aeroplane, leaving your bags behind, an amazing feat.
Well, what might be surprises as well, but perhaps not quite so amazing, was how is it possible that you could have a Coast Guard plane on the runway at a point where it actually collides as a plane arrives into Haneda? Are we looking at a breakdown in air traffic control or a breakdown in discipline of Coast Guard members?
That's a good question. Japan has an excellent safety record. From early indications suggest that there was a confusion of instructions between air traffic control and the Coast Guard aircraft, whereby the Coast Guard aircraft entered the runway just as the Japan Airlines A350 was touching down and a collision ensued. I mean, it's very early days, and it'll take quite some time to get the full understanding of how this tragedy unfolded. But the early indications are there was confusion between air traffic control and the Coast Guard aircraft. Now, the pilot of the Coast Guard aeroplane has serious injuries, but he so far has survived. Tragically, the other 6 occupants have lost their lives. So it may well be that
sorry, Mr. Thomas, sorry to cut in. Would it be 5 or 6, just to clarify, on that Coast Guard plane?
Look, it could be the case that's 5. It's early days. There is confusion about the exact number who have passed away. So let's stay with 5. And the pilot could obviously help enormously to understand where the confusion has arisen, if that's what it turns out to be.
Mr. Thomas, it's easy when tragedies happen to look back and say, well, this should not have happened. There was clearly confusion. But Haneda is a major aviation hub. That's no surprise. It's New Year's time. A busy airport is even busier. We've got Coast Guard planes on the runway because they're seen to aid after the deadly earthquake yesterday in central Japan. So all these things are happening. Is it unreasonable to expect air traffic control and Coast Guard members to take greater care in receiving, verifying instructions under these circumstances?
Certainly, in a high pressure situation where runways are at capacity, there is pressure to get aircraft away, then obviously greater vigilance is required. I mean, I have mentioned Japan has a very, very good record when it comes to these sorts of things. This is a terrible tragedy. There's obviously been some kind of misunderstanding, but certainly, to your point, when there is heavy traffic, whether it's Christmas Eve, Easter, Chinese New Year, all these sorts of very heavy travel times, then obviously increased vigilance is absolutely essential if these sorts of tragedies are not going to repeat themselves.
Well, thanks so much for all those insights. Geoffrey Thomas, Editor-in-Chief at airlineratings.com.